Have you ever felt heartbroken or hurt by someone? Perhaps it was someone who hurt you deeply, and feelings of anger and hatred seem understandable. But Jesus, in all his love and mercy, taught us something different. Love and forgive your enemies. This is not easy advice, but it has the power to transform your life. Today we will explore this profound teaching and how it can bring peace and positive change to your life. Let's discover the power of love, even when faced with those who have hurt you. Nelson Mandela, from prison to reconciliation. Nelson Mandela, the iconic leader of the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, spent 27 years in prison fighting for freedom. But when he was released, he didn't choose revenge. Instead, Mandela chose love and reconciliation. He invited his former political enemies to join in building a new South Africa, a nation where everyone was equal. His love and forgiveness helped him not only transform himself, but also a nation divided by hatred. Corrie ten Boom, forgiving the one who hurt her family. Corrie ten Boom, a Dutch Christian woman, and her family saved many Jews from Nazi persecution. After being arrested and held in a concentration camp, her family endured great suffering, and her sister died there. After the war, Corrie faced a guard from the camp who had contributed to her sister's death. Instead of holding on to hatred, Corrie decided to forgive him. This act of forgiveness freed her soul, bringing peace and relief to her heart. Pope John Paul II, forgiving his assassin. In 1981, Pope John Paul II was shot by Mehmet Ali Acha, a Turkish gunman. Despite being severely wounded, after recovering, Pope did something that amazed the world. He visited his assassin in prison and publicly forgave him. This act not only showed his compassion, but also provided a living example of Jesus' teaching to love your enemies. Through this, the Pope sent a message of peace and forgiveness, even in the harshest circumstances. These stories are clear examples of the power of forgiveness and loving one's enemies. People who experienced pain, injustice, and even the death of loved ones still chose forgiveness over revenge. In doing so, they found true peace in their souls and contributed to great changes in their communities and society. Jesus' teachings are not just theory, they have the real power to transform our lives. We've just heard real stories about the power of love and forgiveness. But let's dive deeper into Jesus' teaching to love your enemies and why it's one of the most powerful and challenging lessons in human life. Love overcoming hatred. The teaching to love and forgive your enemies requires us to rise above our natural human instincts of revenge and resentment. When hurt, our first reaction is often to retaliate, to hurt others in return. But Jesus taught us a different path, the path of love and forgiveness. This is not just an outward act of forgiveness, but also an inner liberation, helping us release the burden of hatred and find peace in our hearts. Forgiveness is a powerful act. Many people might think forgiveness is a sign of weakness, but in reality, it requires immense spiritual strength. We must be strong enough to set aside our ego, let go of personal pain and hurt, and view our enemies with compassion. When we forgive, we not only free ourselves from resentment, but also open the door for our enemies to change. Like Jesus on the cross, he forgave those who crucified him, saying, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Following this teaching is not easy. We live in a competitive world, sometimes harsh, and the feeling of being hurt can linger for a long time. We often face wounds from family, friends, or society, and this makes loving our enemies a huge challenge. However, Jesus didn't call us to do this because it's easy, but because it's necessary for us to live a life according to God's will. Choosing love over hatred is not only about freeing ourselves, but it also opens the door for reconciliation and healing. When we love and forgive, we become more like Christ, living in the image he created us to be. Loving and forgiving our enemies is not just an ethical teaching, but a path to true peace. It not only changes our relationships with others, but also transforms us. When we practice love and forgiveness, we create a better world where love and compassion triumph over hatred and animosity. And finally, remember that when we love our enemies, we don't do it alone. God is always with us, giving us the strength to love even when we think it's impossible. We must acknowledge that loving our enemies is not easy. In fact, it's one of the greatest challenges we face. When someone hurts us, our natural reaction is often anger, hatred, or even a desire for revenge. These emotions can easily take control, making it feel impossible to forgive or love those who have harmed us. We also struggle with loving our enemies because it requires overcoming our own ego. Forgiveness can be seen as a sign of weakness in the eyes of others, and sometimes we fear that if we forgive, we'll be disrespected or hurt again. Additionally, deep wounds can last a long time. Letting those feelings go is a very difficult process. But remember, Jesus didn't promise that love would be easy, but he did promise that love would bring peace. When we choose love over hatred, we not only free ourselves from the chains of resentment, but also open the door for our enemies to change. Sometimes our forgiveness can be the beginning of a reconciliation process that once seemed impossible. Though difficult, loving our enemies is an incredibly powerful step. It brings freedom to the soul, helping us find peace and true joy in life. Forgiveness not only benefits us, but it also creates opportunities for others to change, moving toward peace and love. When we decide to follow Jesus' teaching to love our enemies, we'll begin to see amazing changes in our lives. First, the most noticeable thing we feel is inner peace. When we let go of hatred and resentment, our hearts feel lighter. We no longer have to carry the burden of hatred, which can erode our minds and mental health. Instead, love and compassion fill that space, bringing deep peace. Not only does loving our enemies bring peace within, but it also opens the path to reconciliation. Instead of letting conflict linger, love and forgiveness can soothe deep wounds, giving both sides a chance to rebuild the relationship. In many cases, someone you once saw as an enemy can become a friend, or at least someone with whom you can live in harmony. In reality, we see many stories of people who have lived by this teaching of Jesus, and they not only changed themselves, but also had a positive impact on others. Like Nelson Mandela, who brought peace and unity to an entire country, or Corrie ten Boom, who found peace and healing in her heart through forgiving her enemies. That is the power of love and forgiveness. And finally, loving our enemies not only benefits us, but can also lead to positive change in the relationship. When we love and forgive, we plant seeds of hope and create opportunities for change in the hearts of others. Enemies may come to realize that love is stronger than hatred, and they too can change for the better. That's how Jesus loved us, even when we made mistakes. So when we love our enemies, we not only find peace for ourselves, but also open the door for reconciliation and positive change in our lives and relationships with others. That's the miraculous power of love that Jesus taught, a power that can heal, bring joy, and lift us up in life. Try applying this teaching, and you'll see the incredible transformation it brings. We've explored the miraculous power of Jesus' teaching to love your enemies. Now I encourage you to practice this teaching in your daily life. Start by forgiving someone who has hurt you, and see the peace and change that Jesus brings. Let love and kindness guide each of your steps. And if this video touched your heart, don't forget to hit like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel so we can spread the message of Jesus together. Leave a comment saying Amen if you agree with the prayer and are ready to follow his teaching. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.